Welcome friends, it's Kaylee Bird. I just got back from another long, delightful 7-week trip back to the Hawaiian Islands, and I have really started to figure out a nice art studio setup for myself while on the road or flying and on the road. So today I want to share with you exactly what I pack in my super compact and efficient travel art studio kit that still allows me to make really quality art even while far away from my studio. Hopefully you'll get lots of inspiration for your next great adventure too. I actually filmed this whole video while still on Oahu from one of my beautiful camp spots. But unfortunately, the sound got messed up in my earbuds. So anyways, I came home and refilmed it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the beautiful backdrop, but I think it's a little bit better just to see it overhead anyways. So enjoy! So first I'm going to go over the whole setup, and then we're going to talk about TSA and actually flying with things. So in a nutshell, this is basically my ideal travel art supply cache. Now, this is what I will use if I'm going someplace for like at least 10 days or someplace where I think I'll have like kind of a lot of time on my hands, and I'll actually bring like the painting supplies and stuff. If I'm only going to be gone for just a few days, or if I know it's going to be a super busy trip, or like I just cannot afford to carry like hardly anything with me, then I just go with my little teeny tiny travel sketchbook. This sketchbook, I just have a pencil, eraser, a little rubber band so that it keeps from flapping out, and this is just like literally pencil drawings. I don't do any color or any paint or anything. So if I'm going extremely light, extremely basic, or extremely busy, or extremely short, any of those things, this is what I will bring. But if I have my way and I'm going to be gone for a few weeks or a few months, or especially if I'm traveling in my van where I have extra room, I don't necessarily have to fly, although I do fly with all of this, but I kind of gauge what my trip will encounter and whether or not I will have time to actually create some substantial art. So I already showed you my tiny little sketchbook. This basically comes with me no matter what. Now, when I have enough time or enough space or whatever, I love to bring my painting supplies. So let me show you what that entails. Now, of course, you have to have something to paint on. So I think having a little sketchbook, makes a lot more sense than having loose paper. So I like to have a little teeny sketchbook, and I really prefer a sketchbook that folds flat, that can lay flat, and then you can really use both sides, because you can do something just on one, but I prefer having a sketchbook that, I can almost like kind of double the size of my sketchbook by letting it lay flat. So definitely you're gonna need something, that can actually hold paint, right? Can actually hold water. So this has got really nice thick paper. It's really tiny. It can just slide in anything. It's soft bound, so it's like as light as can be. So a teeny tiny little sketchbook that has whatever kind of paper you actually need it to have, I think is pretty important. Next up, I have my paints. Now, if you've seen any of my travel and art vlogs, you know that I just love this ʔᴑᴜ set. I just think that it is just so much bang for your buck. I think it was like $25 on Amazon or something, not expensive, and you get such a nice variety of colors, as well as a little mixing tray. So it's like you really have everything that you need right here. I love that the jelly gouache stay wet, stay jelly, because then I'm not having to like pull out a palette, pull out little tubes, squeeze out what I think I'll need, worry about wasting, making sure it's staying wet. Like this, you open it up and it is just ready to go right there. And then I use this for mixing. Obviously it's got a little paint spilled on it now, but for the most part, I use this for mixing, and every time I finish a painting, I clean this off. That way it is ready to go for my next one. But the nice thing is that because you have two, I've actually used this one and then had my mom or my fiance or somebody else use that one while we were out traveling. So it's actually enough for two people to use. Yay! Obviously, I've put a few stickers on my ʔᴑᴜ set. This one, I don't even remember, it was some random sticker set, but this is actually a friend of mine, Shauna, the illustrator, so I'll link her down below because she's got some amazing art and stickers, and I just wanted to keep with my little yellow theme right here. Now, if you don't have or feel like purchasing a tiny travel sketchbook, or you're like, I'm just gonna go on one trip and I don't even know when my next one's gonna be, so I don't wanna buy a whole sketchbook, I have a great suggestion for you. I actually make my own little zigzag sketchbooks. Hopefully you guys have seen my travel vlogs, where I will actually get a large sheet of paper and some cardboard and construct my own little zigzag sketchbooks, and then I will make one of these for each trip. So I've got Merida here, I've got Costa Rica here. This was my first one from a couple years ago on a Hawaii visit. So this is a really fun way also that you can create your own teeny tiny little book. It is so portable. It's so easy just to, you know, whip out and paint wherever. And the nice thing is that when you're done, you have this really great way to display your artwork. So I actually really recommend these for travel. I don't really tend to paint on these at home, but for travel, it's so nice to have this one little contained art piece that you can actually display or just open up to look at, and that will remind you of all of your most special points on your trip. Like, now of course if you're bringing paints, you're going to need some paint brushes. So this is a great little case I got actually when I was in Costa Rica at like a dollar store. I like it because it's got a little strap on the top so I can hold it if I need to, but also this helps me orient which way my paintbrushes go. So I always know that the end of my paintbrush is here and the brush side, the ferrule brush side, is that way, so that if I hold it up, I know I'm not smashing the brush bristles. So I kind of like having this on one side to connotate which way to put my brushes in. But before I show you the brushes, I just want to show you a few other items that I have in this side here. So I have a little bit of washi tape. That's in case I want to like tape the borders of my paintings or anything like that. I have an eraser for the pencil in there because I have to do my first initial sketches in pencil. That's what I like to do. And then of course a little pencil sharpener. So those three objects. Here, let me move this here. So I've got those three in my little case here. And then I always carry some rags with me. I actually like making my own rags out of old t-shirts because they're even better than paper towels, because a lot of times paper towels, if they're wet and you put the brush on it, you'll get like little bits of paper. But with this, you can wipe your brush and you're not going to get like bits of paper all stuck in your brush. And that way also too, you are totally self-contained. You don't need anything. You're not making any trash while you're out creating your artwork. So definitely having some rags at your disposal is good. And these rags also help to kind of pad my little spray bottle. So if you work with gouache, you're gonna need a little spray bottle. Not necessarily with, you know, acrylic or watercolor or something else or markers or whatever, but with gouache, you definitely do. You need like a little spray bottle because your gouache constantly gets dry and you need to be able to reconstitute it, as well as just being able to spray over the whole thing to make sure that your gouaches stay nice and wet. Then I have actually created my own little ruler, just because I noticed there was a few times when I wanted to like make a horizon line or something, you know, really straight or whatnot, or if I wanted to be able to make my painting like perfectly squared in the middle or something. I have noticed just having a little ruler around is very handy. I didn't have a, you know, 6 or 7 inch ruler that would fit in here. I didn't want to go buy one, so I just got a really good piece of cardboard, made a straight edge, and, you know, did it myself. So this ruler has actually come in handy a lot of times. Now, as far as my brushes go, I have a little smattering of brushes. Oop, there's my pencil, right? Because I like to do my initial sketches. I have a whole smattering of brushes, different sizes. I mostly tend to use like the tiniest ones, as you can imagine, with my super teeny tiny paintings, that these tiny brushes tend to be the most effective. But I have a nice smattering of sizes, especially like when I'm doing a wash for the background or for the sky or something. I like to use this. So having a nice little assortment of brushes, again, always put in the same direction so that you're not smashing the bristles, right, no matter what you do. This is one of these brushes you're probably familiar with that is like an actual water brush. Now, I had a good friend who uses watercolors, absolutely loves it, convinced me to buy one. I just bought one when I was in Hawaii, so that's why it's still in here. But I don't actually love this thing with gouache. I kind of like to have a little bit more control as far as dipping or spraying. But I did keep this around because I do want to try it with watercolor one day. So this is actually a new piece of my equipment, not necessarily something that I would say you need to have with gouache, but hey, it's in there. I'm gonna keep it in there to encourage me to try it out and use it. The last thing I have in my little bag are clips. I cannot tell you how much these come in handy when you are trying to paint in your book and your pages want to keep flopping around. No, 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 no. I have one clip for whatever side is the bigger side, right? Whatever side you're at. And one for the small side, and there we go. Now your sketchbook will stay open, will stay flat. It makes it so much easier for painting and drawing on it like that. So definitely, definitely you want a couple of clips. The last piece of the painting supplies is this, which I recently got and I flipping love it so much. This is actually a little water cup. It is silicone and it pops in and out like that, and it's got a little lid, so obviously you can see I've already been using it quite a bit. But this I love so much because after I'm done using it, I can just like kind of pop it back in its little container, just like that. And with the lid, even when it's got paint or water or whatever, it doesn't get on any of my stuff, so it doesn't get anything wet. And so now I have this great little teeny setup. Like, that is such a small setup to have like your entire little working studio just like that. It's amazing. Now the last two things that I have up here are things that I use because I like to film my work. You know, I do YouTube, Instagram, that kind of thing. So this may or may not be something that you actually need for yours, although one of them I think is still pretty necessary for any artist. The second one, maybe not so much. So the first one is actually this light. Yeah, you thought this was just here being a light for the video, but no, this is actually a light that I travel with. It's great. It's got 3 modes, so you can be warm, cool, or kind of both. Neutral is a little bit brighter, but this is rechargeable. It's got the little rechargeable thing. It gets very bright. I love it because it can clip onto something, so I can use it on the side of a desk, or like, you know, if I'm reading or something, or it also just stands on its own. I got this on Amazon. I'll try to pop a link in the description if I can figure out where I got this. I don't remember exactly where I got it, but it was not expensive, but it was so great. Like, it is so useful. It'll stay, the battery will stay charged for like 3 or 4 hours. So, you know, especially if I'm like doing the van life thing or camping, like I can charge this up and I can have a really good light so I can see what I'm doing, as well as so I can see what I'm filming. And speaking of filming, the last object up here is actually this. It's sort of like an arm for your phone. So this is like this great metal piece. This can hook on to kind of anything. You know, it can go onto a tripod, but it can also go on to like the back of a chair or something like that. And then this side is where my phone goes. Oh, hello. And basically I can hook it onto something, put it at any angle, and then this screw tightens it so it will stay at that angle. Here we go, here's kind of a little rickety demonstration, but you can see that. So I can literally hook it to anything and then put this at any angle, so you're able to get my camera right where it needs to be so that I can film myself while I'm painting or whatnot. I use this in my studio as well as for travel. I actually just made this little strap just to be able to kind of like contain it and hold it in there better. But this thing is super clutch if you are trying to film what you're painting, even around the house, but especially if you're like traveling and don't know, you know, where you are gonna be able to even set up. This is so clutch. I got this online a few years ago. I literally, oh, iShot Pro is the company. I was gonna say, it was so long ago, I literally don't remember. Again, I'll try to put a link down in the description if I can figure out where I bought this, but I've had this now for like 6 or 7 years or something, so I'm not quite sure. But you can find extendable arms like this, I'm sure, around at other, you know, film and video stores, or, you know, God forbid, I hate to always say it, but Amazon, you know. But this is really, really wonderful for helping me actually film things and get at that good angle. Now, as far as TSA goes, right? TSA being the Transportation Security Administration, I believe is what it's called for. Essentially, that is the organization, right, that controls air travel and the security around it. So when you're going through, you know, all of the scanners and body scanners and, you know, the x-rays and all that of your machines, that is TSA. Now, if you have flown before, you know that they have a limit on how much liquid you can bring and sort of how you can bring it over. Like, you can't just bring over a big water bottle, but you can bring over like small containers, right? Even though it'd be the same amount of liquid, you could bring 4 3-ounce containers, but you could not bring 1 12-ounce container, right? So as far as TSA goes, these would be the only 2 components that you would need to worry about, okay? This is easy. This is full of water. All you do is just dump out the water, right, when you fly, and make sure it's not, you know, hidden in your bag. Make sure you haven't forgotten about it, because if they're searching hard enough, they will make you dig this out and dump it out or throw it away or whatever. So make sure that this is empty of water. I actually have accidentally flown with this full and hadn't had a problem, but don't do that. Just go ahead and dump it out. It's fine. It won't be a problem. Fill it up whenever you get to your destination. Now the gouache, because this is a whole bunch of little containers, right? I could see perhaps some point, maybe they wanted to pull this out. I have personally flown with this gouache set, this exact one, to Mexico, to Costa Rica, and to Hawaii, and have had no problems. Nobody's asked me to pull it out. Nobody's asked to look at it whatsoever. I flew to France years ago with a bunch of oil paints. Now those were in my checked bag, but still, I flew with paints, you know. So I have never had a problem with this. What I do is I will kind of keep it maybe sort of towards the top of my bag so that if there is a problem when you're going through the x-rays or the scanners, you can just pull it out real quick, say, hey, look, these are non-toxic water-based paints, you know, should not be a problem. I think that the paint that they don't want you to fly with, of course, is more like toxic, kind of volatile. Definitely pigments and stuff like that. I mean, definitely solvents and things like that you can't fly with. But I'm pretty sure so far I have never had a problem, and I have gone through like not checked bag, like flown with this in my carry-on bag and had no problems. I wanted to show you a little trick I came up with myself. If you're worried about your paints like sloshing around or mixing, honestly, you know, they're called gels because they really stay pretty well. So I really haven't had much of a problem with mine mixing. Of course, if you lift these up, you can see that there is a little bit of, you know, little dirtiness in the bottom. So I came up with a really good method for flying with this or traveling with this. Actually, my students even do this just for coming in between classes. I will get a nice big Ziploc bag, right, like a gallon Ziploc bag, and just put it right over it, right? So it's just kind of like in the bag, and then the top will actually still snap right on, okay? So you don't even really need to worry about closing the bag because essentially what you're doing is you're creating a little seal in there. So there is actually a plastic seal, and so things should not move around so much. In fact, mine kind of pops up a little bit. I think if I remember correctly, I did this for Costa Rica and I actually put a big rubber band on it. So you just kind of do that, big rubber band, and then you've got extra security knowing that your paints won't mix up quite so much. And then because it's washable paint, you know, whenever you get to where you are, you just take that off, pop it off, and then you can literally just like rinse this off in the sink and it'll come off, and then you can just reuse it over and over again. Definitely don't need to throw it away every time by any means. You can reuse the same bag over and over again. So I think you should be fine. Like I said, you know, you may want to check with your local whatever equivalency of TSA is if you don't live here in the United States. Make sure it's not a problem. But like I said, you know, I've flown internationally twice with this, and you know, flying back and forth to Hawaii, like it has not been a problem for me so far. Oops, I guess there was one more thing you can kind of consider an art supply that I bring, and that is like my version of my mini laptop. So my iPad and this great little teeny Bluetooth keyboard. I use this in case I'm doing like blog posting or, you know, answering emails or working on my website or something that's just a little bit more involved than using my iPhone, which that works for a lot of stuff. But if I'm gonna be gone for a few weeks or a few months, I gotta be able to do more than what's on my phone. So I figured out if I have my little keyboard and my iPad, this works great. The iPad is also really good if you are drawing or painting and you need to have your reference right there. I love being able to have this, zoom in, paint from that or whatnot. So this would be my last little bit. And of course, oh my gosh, if you're traveling, you definitely need Kindle so you can have all your books so you can read. That's one of the best things about traveling, is all that extra time to read. So yeah, this would be the last little bit of stuff that I bring that I would kind of consider like my studio or my working studio.
Last week I put out a call on my Instagram and YouTube to find out what some of you guys bring for your travel art supplies, and I got some great responses. Art by Allie Go said she brings a sketchbook, watercolors, and Posca. Keeps it real simple. Hopefully I'm not butchering this, but Sonny Oak said they bring a Derwent Draw Dark Indigo and a lighter color, and then just a water brush with water and water brush with ink. Again, very simple. Love that two-tone idea. Scribbles in Peace says, I take a small backpack with a roll-up brush / knife holder, small acrylic paints because they dry faster on the road, 8x8 canvases, and mini palettes, which, yes, I can definitely understand the drying faster paint. That is a smart move. And then Hannah Quintero Art, who, hi Hannah, she's contributed a lot on this channel. She's a sweetheart. She says, my favorite supplies are my vintage leather-looking sketchbook along with my little bag of charcoal pencils to sketch people, places, or animals I see. Lately, it's been a bit harder for me to create while traveling now that I have a 1-year-old. The silver lining, though, is that I have gotten the handle of drawing and painting during nap times. I love that idea. You know, just squeeze in a little bit of art whenever you can. You don't have to do some big, huge production. Even if you just pull out your materials for 30 minutes while you're on vacation, it will be the most relaxing and just artfully indulgent 30 minutes of your vacay. That is a great point, Hannah. Thanks for piping up again. As far as the actual car or van, or in my case SUV setup goes, pretty much I just had my sleeping pad and a yoga mat underneath that lovely tapestry you see on the bottom, so it was very comfortable for me to sit on. And I had purchased this little $5 table at the thrift store that I could use while camping to set up, but I found that it folded flat really well and it became the perfect surface for me to be able to kind of use as like a flat table in the back of the SUV to paint on. So that is the black thing you're seeing underneath, and then of course you just open up the back. I had another tapestry that I would hang either on the back or outside of one of the windows if I needed to block some extra sunlight. You'll see my bathing suit hanging up in the back. I had some nice cushiony pillows and, you know, snacks and stuff like that. I didn't wind up camping out of the SUV very much. I did a little bit. Mostly I stayed in the tent or at friends' houses and stuff like that, but that's pretty much just kind of what the setup was. This is most of the setup that I brought when I went to Costa Rica as well as Mexico, and will be what I bring with me in the future. So it really is kind of, once, you know, for you or yourself or whatever you like to do, you have your own, you know, little compacted art supplies, then you'll just wind up adding a few things here and there just to make your little space itself more comfortable as you need it. Hopefully you guys feel super inspired today. I love sharing my travels with you guys in the hope that it inspires you to go out and go to beautiful places and create while you are there, for sure. If you'd like to see all these art supplies in action, check out this playlist right here of my art and travel vlogs. I'm always trying to go on new adventures and add more places, so the playlist is definitely always growing. Thanks for being here today, guys. I will see you next time.